Investor Group, an angel fund, and is a former advisory member of the board of Angel Capital Education Foundation. His first book, You Need to Be a Little Crazy, The Truth About Starting and Growing Your Own Business, describes the ups and downs and emotional trials of running a business. It's in its fourth printing and has been translated into Chinese, Russian, Korean, and Thai. His second book, Bounce, Failure, Resiliency, and the Confidence to Achieve Your Next Great Success, shows what it takes to develop true business confidence. He's widely quoted in major news publications and serves on the board of the Institute of Entrepreneurship Education, and as a member of the Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame, he's an adjunct professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology. Please welcome Barry Moltz.
I've had 3 businesses over the last 15 years. The first business went out of business. The second business, I was kicked out by my partners about 2 weeks before my first son was born. And the third business, I actually started 2 weeks after my first son was born. Fortunately, in July of 1999, I was able to sell that business. I was able to pay back the bank the $1.3 million I owed them. And my wife tells me I got her back just about the same time. I didn't always think my life would turn out this way. When I was growing up, my mother told me that every year I'd get promoted, every year I'd make more money. Does anybody here still have that same fantasy? What my life turned out to be was really a series of ups and downs, a series of good times and bad times. And that's the first skill we need to get if we're going to be innovative entrepreneurs, and that's the skill of resiliency. How do we celebrate the really great times, and how do we transition through the times that perhaps aren't so great? A lot of people come up to me and they say, Barry, I want to start my own business because I want to make a boatload of money. I tell them if they want to make a lot of money the next 5 years, they'll find themselves a job. Because you actually can make more money in the next 5 years working for somebody else, right, than working for yourself. The only reason you should go out there and take your idea and try to make a business of it is because you have passion. Deep down inside, you want to see your ideas succeed, and you're willing to let your ideas fail. Now, let's face it. Statistically, most people start their own business for only one reason. They hate their boss. How many people here actually hate their boss? Don't raise your hand if your boss is here, okay? It's not a good career move. I actually started my first business because I hated my boss. When I was at IBM, my boss, George, he used to have sales contests where first prize was lunch with him. I used to ask him, what's second prize? 2 lunches with you? A lot of people come up to me and they say, Barry, I have a great idea for a business. What do you think? And I give them the answer, which I give all the time, which is, I have absolutely no idea. Because businesses are not about ideas. Businesses are about the execution of those ideas. Just like innovation is not about that eureka moment. It's about following a process. Have you ever heard that expression? If you build it, they will come. What movie is that from? Field of Dreams. I think that was Kevin Costner's last good movie, wasn't it? Some people go, Waterworld. I'm like, no. Just because we build it doesn't mean people will come. There's a lot of great products that we develop all the time that unfortunately never ever see the light of a business day, and there's a lot of lousy products that we use all the time. If business is about execution, then it's only about one thing. It's about people like you. As an angel investor, I would much rather invest in an A management team and a B idea rather than a B management team and an A idea. We've got to go in that direction. That's why you see so many serial entrepreneurs, people that start one business after the next, after the next. What do? They take the same management team from place to place to place because they know if they've been successful over here, they'll be successful again. Now, most of the times, when people see a business speaker like myself, they're really only looking for one thing. They're really looking for the 7 steps of success, right? That's why there are so many business books out there that have numbers in their titles. Who here has read the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra? Oh, Deepak's going to be upset. What about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey? What about the 7 Highs of Effective Habits by Amy Winehouse? I actually don't think there are 7 steps. However, I do believe there are 2 things that all financially successful people have in common. The first one is luck, and the second one is timing. Has anybody ever asked you, would you rather be lucky or good? How do you answer? I'd rather be lucky, right? Because if I'm lucky, it seems like I'm good. Have you ever met someone who was really kind of stupid and jerky and made a boatload of money? Doesn't that just piss you off? That used to get me really upset until I heard a great quote from a French dramatist. His name is Jean Cousteau, and this is what he said. He said, "We must believe in luck, for how else can we explain the success of those we don't like?" That made me feel a whole heck of a lot better. I don't want to pretend that financial success is all about luck and timing. Certainly you have to work hard. Certainly you have to spread your risk. But sometimes, just sometimes, we don't get to that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if it's not for luck and timing. Okay, so without the 7 steps, where do we start? Well, we don't start by bragging about our success, but instead we start, actually, by honoring our failures. When I left IBM in 1990, I remember my mentor at the time was a gentleman named Tom Leaptag. And I remember the day I left, Tom stood there and he said, "You know, Barry, you're a pretty good business person, but you'll be a better business person when you have failed. You've had way too much success here at IBM. Every year you got promoted, every year you made more money." I remember thinking, Tom was just jealous. Here I was leaving IBM. I was going to make twice in my new job. They would actually give me my own office. I was going to have a teak wood furniture desk. I was going to have a green high-back leather chair. I was going to have my own assistant. I remember her name was Denise. I was excited. I didn't realize that Tom was actually foretelling my future of the next 5 years as I was fired from this job a year later. As I said before, I went out of business in my first business adventure, and I was kicked out of business in my second business adventure. This was the first time that I learned that I could fail too. This was the first time that I actually departed from the curve that my mother set for me, that every year I'd get promoted, every year I'd make more money. This was the first time where I said if I ever was going to write a book about my business life, the title of the book would be "The Worst They Can Do Is Eat You." Surviving your business during hard times. Years later, I actually sold this book to Kaplan Publishing, and soon after that, the publisher, she brought me into her office and she closed the door. And she said, "Barry, we really like this book. It's not like any other business book that's out there. We especially love the preface from Howard Tolman. It's not like any other book that's out there, except we have a problem with one thing." And I said, "Well, what's that one thing?" She goes, "We're uncomfortable with the title, 'The Worst They Can Do Is Eat You.'" And I said, "What's wrong with the title?" She says, "Well, 'The Worst They Can Do Is Eat You,' it kind of sounds pornographic to us." So I thought for a second. I said, "Cynthia, if it was meant to be pornographic, the title would be 'The Best They Can Do Is Eat Me.'" She didn't laugh, believe me. Where this title actually comes from is my best friend. He's a personal injury attorney right here in Chicago. His name is Zane Smith. He always likes me to mention his name in case anybody hurts themselves on the way out. He always used to tell me during very difficult times, he said, "Barry, remember, the worst they can do is eat you, and that's illegal." And I don't know, that made me feel better. Knowing they could cook me, knowing they could stew me, knowing they could rake me over the coals, put a fork in me, and pronounce me done, I always felt that at the end of the day I could go to sleep. The next day I'd get another chance. This idea of letting go is very difficult in American business because we're always taught that whenever we fail, there's always something to learn, right? That we can't leave this place of failure until we figure out why failure came to us and what there's there to learn. Let me tell you a secret. Sometimes when we fail, it just sucks. There's absolutely nothing to learn. In my last company, when my largest customer was indicted by the government, what was I supposed to learn? Not do business with criminals? When my best employee moved to another state because her husband got a job there, what was I to learn? Not to hire married people? I believe if failure was such a prerequisite to success, then when we did fail, we'd all be writing letters to each other that went something like this. To everyone I know, from me. Yippee, another failure. I can't help brag that I failed yet again. I'm writing because I knew you'd want to share this wonderful moment with me. I'm so proud of myself because as a result of my latest failure and all the unbelievable things I've been able to learn, I'm that much closer to that financial success. I'm certain that my time is coming soon because I have been failing at an increasing rate. And I'm learning so much. Please stay in touch with me so I can tell you when I fail yet again and get that much closer to the financial success that I deserve. Your friend, Barry. Failure is only valuable when we see it as part of the entire business cycle, even when there always isn't something to learn. What we need to do in gaining business confidence is really only one thing, and that's to let go. There are these two monks. They're walking through the forest, and they come across a bride who is crying by the river in her wedding dress. They ask her what's wrong. She says that her wedding is on the other side of the river and she can't cross it because she's afraid she's going to ruin her dress. The two monks look at each other. They're not sure what to do because they're forbidden by their religious vows to touch women. However, the first monk doesn't hesitate. He scoops up the woman, he carries her across the river and puts her down the other side. She very happily goes off to her wedding. The second monk, seeing what's happened, races across the river, screaming at the first monk, saying, "How could you have touched that woman? How could you have broken all of our religious vows?" As they're walking back to the monastery that night through the forest, the first monk is enjoying the bright sunshine on his face and the cool breeze in his hair. But once again, the second monk keeps berating the first monk. "How could you have touched that woman? How could you have broken all of our monthly vows?" When they get back to the monastery that night, they're having dinner. And once again, the second monk starts into the first monk. "How could you have touched that woman?" The first monk says, "What woman?" The second monk says, "The woman that you carried across the river." The first monk said, "I only carried her across the river. You carried her all the way back to the monastery." In the same way, in order to develop true business confidence, you need to let go. This ball represents your last business result. When it's a success, what do we want to do? We want to show it to everybody, right? We want to be proud of it. We want to get an award. And when that last business result is a failure, what do we want to do? We also want to hold it close, right? But we want to hide it. In order to develop true business confidence, you need to take your last business result, success or failure, and just let go. You need to bounce so you can take another action, so you get another chance at success. Tiger Woods, probably the greatest golfer of all time, even on one leg, right? What he says is he plays golf with a very short memory. He only focuses on the next shot. The system of business confidence requires action, not perfection. This is perfectly illustrated in the 1970s, where there's a wonderful contest called the Kremer Prize that gave away money to the first group of people that could fly an airplane for a mile under solely human power. All the great tech institutions of the day entered, but there was one group of hobbyists headed up by a gentleman named Paul McGreedy that entered their airplane they called the Gossamer Albatross. And the way they ran the race was that they would fly the Gossamer Albatross until it crashed. And when it did crash, they wouldn't spend a lot of time figuring out all the possible things that could go wrong. They fixed the obvious problems, got the airplane up in the air again. During the course of the competition, the Gossamer Albatross crashed over 500 times and won the race. Similarly, in business, what we need to do is try as many things as possible, over as short a period of time as possible with as few resources possible to really get to where we want to go. Finally, I want each of you to make one commitment to me tonight before you leave here. From now on, I would like you to strive for minimal achievement. This guy over here saying, I've been waiting my whole life for a speaker to say this. I actually can do this one. What do I mean by striving for minimal achievement? There are these two monks, not the same two monks. They're sitting by a river. It's not the same river. They're talking about the sheer power of their Zen masters, their teachers. The first monk says, my Zen master, he's so powerful. You see that river over there? He can actually walk across the river without using a bridge. The second monk, a little bit older, says, well, he actually doesn't say anything at first. He just kind of breathes the way monks do, right? My Zen master, he's so powerful that when he chops wood, he chops wood. When he cooks rice, he cooks rice. What does that mean? What I take away from that story is the incredible power that we can get by focusing on one thing at a time. When we chop wood, let's chop wood. We're on the phone, let's be on the phone. When we're in a meeting, let's just be in the meeting. This is becoming increasingly difficult because I am convinced we are raising a generation of attention deficit disorder individuals. When was the last time you did one thing at a time? Who's only doing one thing right now? Multitasking is totally overrated. We can get incredible power in our businesses and our ideas by focusing on one thing at a time. It doesn't mean if our clients ask us to morph our businesses, we shouldn't do that. Plenty of businesses started over here, and then years later they do something different. eBay started selling auction software. Nokia started making rubber tires and rubber boots. And of course, how many of us had Cabbage Patch dolls? Guys, don't be afraid to raise your hand. It's okay. Cabbage Patch dolls were created by a company called Coleco, which was an acronym for the Connecticut Leather Company. They didn't start out making toys. VCs report that 70% of all the businesses that they invest in, 5 years later, they're doing something totally different. I want to congratulate all the people that entered tonight, all the award winners. You really are the engine that makes this economy go, especially during a difficult economy. All of you really do have bounce. Thank you for having me.
Barry Moltz, ladies and gentlemen.